Welcome everyone to a special series that I'm thrilled to be hosting here on LinkedIn called The Entrepreneur's Chair. Throughout this series, my goal is to provide you with authentic and intimate conversations with the trailblazing entrepreneurs that are reshaping the Austin business scene. From startup founders to seasoned business execs, we'll go deep into the conversations about their challenges, their struggles, their triumphs, and the pivotal moments that have shaped who they are as an entrepreneur. Today, I'm honored to have as my guest Emily LaRusch, the CEO and founder of Back Office Betty, a virtual receptionist company that supports law firms across the United States with A-plus fractional administrative staffing. Under her leadership, Back Office Betties has become a trusted partner for solo and small law firms, offering tailored support that helps firms streamline their operations and elevate the customer experience. Over the years, Emily has expanded Back Office Betty from startup phase to a thriving, award-winning company with a reputation for excellence. Emily is a passionate advocate for entrepreneurs. She volunteer teaches at Inmates to Entrepreneurs, served on the board of the Entrepreneurs Organization, coaches a group of entrepreneurs, and has guest lectured at Texas A&M and Virginia Tech. In addition to business pursuits, she also homeschools her two boys. Now that's multitasking. Welcome, Emily.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I'm exhausted just hearing. I'm like, who has time to do all that?
And I am going to be fascinated to find out how you do all that. So welcome and thank you so much for your investment in time today.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, and congratulations on your business.
Oh, thank you. It's been 10 years of toil.
Well, you know, your journey to found Back Office Betty started, with my understanding is a frustration that I guess you're making calls to an office and it goes straight to voicemail. So there was something there that sparked an idea. Would you mind walking us through that?
So I didn't go to college, so I don't have a fancy degree. I was working as a senior underwriter for a company that was kind of top 3 bank, but miserable place to work. And so I was also really busy. So I only had a few minutes break to make some calls to line up these different home services that I was needing. And the people weren't answering. One guy even called back and was like, "Hey, I have a missed call from you." And I'm like, what is wrong with these people? Do you A, not want my money, B, like not a care? This is crazy. And I was like, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but in my 20s, I worked for call centers and I know how to provide great customer service and I can answer a phone. So I always thought I could be entrepreneurial, but I didn't feel like I had a skill set. And I thought, well, any idiot can answer the phone. I started my career as a receptionist. I think I could do this.
That's wonderful. Yeah, it's interesting that the companies that we build that are the best are the ones that are based on passion, a real problem that we found, and you certainly have experienced that. I was curious how that manifested in the legal practice, because there's lots of verticals, but you specifically went into the lawyer world and focused on customer success and user experience. So
yeah, and that actually didn't happen until about 2 years in. So the way it started was I'd answer the phones with anyone with a pulse and a wallet. Anyone who wanted to pay me, I'd answer their phones. And what I wanted to do is something different than what regular answering services were doing, which are basically forwarding on messages. I'm sure you've called those doctor offices, and you clearly know you're not talking to the office. So I wanted to actually be able to schedule and understand and be able to speak the lingo. When we got to about 50 clients, I realized we can't sell the benefits of our steam Rotovac carpet cleaning system on one call and then understand the intricate differences of scheduling a legal intake for, say, an estate planner. And so I asked my team, we created a litmus test. What is best for the company who values us, who pays on time? What is best for the team? And I asked my team, which of our clients do you love serving? And then I asked, what can we scale the company with? So that was my little litmus test. And I asked my team, well, I love my blue collar clients. And those are the ones who initially I kind of started it for because they sucked on the phone, if they even answered. My team across the board said the lawyers.
Interesting.
Yep. And so I realized, there was a common thread actually amongst my team at that time. I had a criminal justice major. I had one who went to paralegal school. I myself had worked in pretty big law firms, and I worked in real estate law, and I realized, well, we do have quite a bit of legal experience on the team. Those clients pay us and they like us. And so I made that really challenging decision to niche the business, and it was terrifying. I remember I was in a drive-through window, because I will never forget it, when I got an email come in from a chiropractor. And it was like the day after we said we're niching for lawyers. Mm-hmm. And saying no was the most painful thing I've ever done. It was so hard to say, I'm sorry, but we're a service for law firms.
Well, congratulations on that, because that truly is one of the entrepreneurial errors that people have, is not being able to identify the ideal client, because otherwise there's no way to scale. So somehow you navigated that, figured it out, and it seems like it's turned into a really great business for you.
It's been wonderful. And I, over the years, have kind of fell in love with magnetic marketing. And one of the things that I learned was you want to magnetically attract and repel the people who aren't for you. And so when I'm teaching, I talk about that. And I say, when you're learning your elevator pitch, you want people to say, that's me. And if they can't identify that that's me, you're not giving the right messaging.
That's really interesting, because, we spend so much time with core values, and we talk about attracting the right people and repelling those that aren't a good fit. But you're taking that for a really good approach to the right fit clients for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've had discussions lately. People say, oh my gosh, why did you niche for lawyers? They're awful. And I'm like, but they're not. They're not awful, because we are not a fit. We have a silly name, back office Betties. People chuckle about it, but they remember it. And we have a certain culture of respect, kindness, and uplifting. And so what we attract are the attorneys who are family law, they're estate planning, they're personal injury, and they care so much about their clients. And these are the attorneys with heart. So we attract those, and those ones who are just, not in alignment with that, they have different goals, and that's okay. But our clients are generally a culture fit too.
That's really nice. Looking back at your experience, I read that you were hosting BMX events as a child, and I'm just curious, tell us a little bit about that and how that entrepreneurial spark evolved with you.
I think I was born to be an entrepreneur. I was 7 when that happened. So at 7 years old, I decided to create a production, a neighborhood production. I was going to be, now again, I'm not the talent, but I can produce. And so essentially what I did is I had the kids get their skateboards, their roller skates, their BMX bikes out, and then I charged the parents $1 entrance fee each, essentially to watch their own kids play.
Oh, that is wonderful. Okay, so how has that entrepreneurial spirit evolved over time?
Well, I'll tell you, my next endeavor, I decided we should make bookmarks and go door to door and sell them. And there's a very big lesson in this for me. I enlisted the help of my cousin to draw the bookmarks and make them pretty. And I mean, these are very crude drawings, mind you, and on sheet paper, not even fancy construction paper. But the sweet neighbors would go and the ladies would empty their purses of change into my little Ziploc baggie. Well, at the end of our day, collecting all the money, I had these Ziploc baggies full of money. And my first employee and I, this is what I call the fist fight on grandma's lawn. We got into a brawl, her and I. Because she thought we divide the money. And I'm like, oh, contraire, mon frere. I am the mastermind of this operation. You are merely the help. You are my minion. And so my learning on that was you have got to take care of people. The people need to be taken care of first. And for those of you worried, she lives in Dallas. We're still best friends. We made up. We'd never got in another fist fight.
I love that. I was just thinking about when I was growing up, my first entrepreneurial experience was I would ride my bike to the store and I would buy little pieces of candy and then I would go back to the playground and sell it at a uplift.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
It was in you.
Yeah.
It was in you.
You know,
There was one other thing I did is I lived on this property in San Diego and we had these trees everywhere on the property with these disgusting fruits on them. But somehow people love them. And I would sell them for like 50 cents. And I was like, I can't believe we're selling these things for 50 cents. I mean, they're nasty. Well, many years later, I have developed a love of the avocado. And I had no idea that my 50-cent avocados were like half the price of what you can get them for in the store. So it was like, no wonder people weren't buying these things.
Oh my goodness.
So I just look for opportunities all the time. I was a little hustler.
That is really wonderful to hear about. Moving on to a little personal area, you grew up with undiagnosed ADHD, and that had to have a pretty profound impact, and I know you have some messages that you share with others. Would you mind talking about that a bit?
Yeah, of course. Of course, back then, ADHD wasn't a word. There were hyper kids or spirited kids. There were signs of like bossiness, clearly, and my, arranging the productions and telling other kids what to do. So nowadays I'll tell parents, look at those leadership skills when their kids are, real bossy or things like that. So until I went to school though, I was the happiest, chattiest, most lively little thing you ever saw. And then when I went to school, I felt like my wings had been clipped. I started failing. I couldn't do well in school. 4th grade was so nice, I did it twice. And I completely felt like a moron. And my parents had the attitude of you're either lazy or dumb. Like, we don't know which. But they kind of leaned towards lazy. And it was like, I tried so hard. No matter how hard I studied, my hardest studying hours would maybe produce a C if I was lucky. Whereas my brother, everything was effortless. They're testing him for giftedness. And so it created a major complex in me. And by the time I was a teenager, I hated myself. I didn't think I was good for anything. I thought my brother's the bee's knees. My sister is like the perfect, cute little thing who can do no wrong. And I had no confidence. So by 9th grade, I was ready to drop out. And I told my mom, either send me to the bad kids school, because they only meet 4 hours a day, or I'm just going to drop out and go live on the beach with my homeless friends. And so, the school I ended up going to treated you like an adult. And on my first day, they gave me a sheet that said, here's what's required to graduate in the state of California. You need to take all of these classes. You do them at your own pace and you graduate when you're done. You're going to punch in every morning. 5 minutes late, you stay 5 minutes after. And they treated me like an adult. And they also talked to me as though there was without a doubt in anyone's mind in our ability to achieve. I ended up doing so well that I had, at that point, failed the first semester in 9th grade. So here I am 1.5 years behind. I ended up graduating on time as if I'd never failed anything. And so what my encouragement to other young people and what I've learned since, whether you're dyslexic or you have ADHD, is that our brains actually function in a way that's different than the normal population, and it can be a superpower. We can see things on the high level. We can be futuristic. And what's really neat, especially about ADHD, is we can hyper focus. So when I was starting my business, I was so excited about it. I could go 60, 70 hours a week with hyper focus because I loved what I was doing. Like my kid, my oldest, he's ADHD. He can game for hours, but to sit down and do something he doesn't like, not so much. And so I tell everyone, don't ever let that be a holdback. Don't let your sex, your creed, your orientation, your, mental health, whatever it is, it's never a holdback. There's always a way that we can translate our pain into purpose and sometimes even a superpower.
Yeah, it's interesting because our whole education system is set up for a concept of a certain way that the brain is wired. I guess it's still from the manufacturing days, right? We needed workers, and now people are understanding that everybody learns different. And I'm going to jump into some of your volunteer work. My understanding is that you teach in the inmates for entrepreneurs. I'd be curious, number one, what that program is, and then some of the things that you've found out and lessons you've provided that are going to help take them to the next level.
Absolutely. So Inmates to Entrepreneurs was started by a guy named Brian. He's done very well in the entrepreneurial world. He's very successful, and this is a program that he started and funded. And so last week we taught, usually we're teaching people who are recently released or they've somehow been judicially involved. They don't necessarily have to have been in prison, but the goal is to reduce recidivism. And when you get that kind of strike on your record, it is very difficult to get a job. So one of my co-teachers, he was a CPA. He went to jail for embezzlement. And we're not talking about murderers and killers and crack dealers like you would think. Our system is made up of such a variety of people. And so he can never work as a CPA again, but he started a business and he's been very successful. So that's an example. I myself have sat before a judge, and thankfully for me, I was underage, and the judge kind of read me the riot act and told me, like, Miss, you are going to be overage soon, and you won't be sitting in my court. You won't be getting a slap on the wrist. We will be hauling you off in handcuffs and putting you in a cell. And I didn't want that life. And so thankfully for me, I can say I have been judicially involved. And a lot of the people in the program are surprised because they just like, oh, look at this little blonde girl. She's successful. Oh, it must have been so easy. And it's not. But really interesting things is we teach how to start a business over a 6-week period with $1,000 or less. And I have a business that I had started in the past, a service business that I use as a case study in that class to kind of show, like, there was a lot of different ways to get creative about doing it, a lot of ways to get started. And the whole idea is to empower. And then I want to share something I found just this week. Okay, so there are 3 things that I'll tell anyone who asks me what were the key secrets to our success. And one of them is using a psychometric tool like Culture Index or Aptive Index. So we use the Aptive Index for the Inmates to Entrepreneurs, and I had them take all of their psychometric profiles. They're made up of 4 different categories. We have our visionaries, our eagles. They fly. They're the futuristic, high-level thinkers that are out there creating new things. Then we've got our team of dolphins. Those are our social and our salespeople, and they're the connectors and fundraisers. Below that, we have got our more of a research profile. These are the guys who understand the vision. They create the project plans. They make sure everything gets done on time. They can kind of do a little bit of everything. And then below that, we've got our wolves, and this is the bulk of our community. The wolves are the harmonious pack. They're the ones who are getting the work done that we absolutely would not survive without. They create harmony amongst teams, and they create that warm feeling when you come into a workplace. And not surprising to me, but I wanted proof, is I offered for all of them to take their profiles, and over 90% were eagles.
Really?
Yeah. And it's something I suspected, is that these are the people who generally, eagles are nonconformist. We don't like to follow rules, which can be great when channeled in a good way, but these are birds who had their wings clipped.
And when you help them understand that, what do you see happen in their continence?
I can speak from my own experience, because the first time that I saw that, I feel like I was a bird with my wing clipped for many, many years and didn't see my own value. My dad called me flaky because I went from job to job. I didn't become an expert in anything. And so I looked at it as I have no value. I mean, I'm not an engineer. I don't have a special skill set in anything. And when I first saw my profile and I learned I'm a visionary, strategic person, and my company then empowered me to say, Emily, stop trying to do all these things that require detail orientation and repetitive tasks and all the things that you're not good at. And I want you to focus on strategy, vision, and the things that you're good at. The whole company changed, but my life changed, and I found acceptance in a way that I'd never found before.
You know, I've had transformational experiences just through the different assessment, whether it's positive intelligence, culture index, positive intelligence. Recently, I did a course on that, and just every one of them, there's something we learn about ourselves that is awareness. And so I'm so impressed that you're giving back with helping the inmates that are going to be entrepreneurial understand who they are so that they can be more effective in life. So congratulations on that. That's amazing.
Well, thank you. It's a passion project. I have a good friend who was sentenced to life and died in prison during COVID. Another friend of mine, my best friend, I don't talk about this a whole lot, but I was homeless at 18, and I lived on the streets with a boy that had often lived with us. His mom was an addict and a prostitute, and she'd often be put in jail, and he'd come live with us. And so he was like a brother to me. So this was a period when his mom was locked up, and he and I, when I became homeless, I went and found him. Stayed wherever he stayed and kind of showed me the ropes of homelessness. But one day him and I were walking, you know, I'm the whole time trying to tell him, let's get you back in school, Steve. Let's get your life on track. You know, I'm a kid. I didn't know what to do to help him, but I tried. And one day a cop just swerved in front of us, snatched him up. He was taken away, and to this day, I don't know what happened to him. I've never seen him again. I've never been able to find him. And so I tell this to the inmates, to entrepreneur students, like, me showing up here is my way of saying, like, hey, Steve, I love you.
Number one, thank you for being so vulnerable about this, because that's how we reach other people. And so I'm just so impressed with you. So thank you for all of that. When you were talking about the three things that you would tell a new entrepreneur, and you talked about the assessments, would you mind sharing what the other two are?
Yeah, absolutely. So number 2 is dun, 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 EOS.
That might be a little bit in my heart, yeah.
It might be a little in your wheelhouse, but it is not to fluff you up, because I've been saying this for quite a while. If you don't have an operating system in your business, it's crazy. So we're going to roll out fractional firm administrators. These are kind of the office managers of a law firm. So I did some market research. I recently interviewed a bunch of people, and these guys are getting paid $150 plus a year to be a firm administrator and run these law firms. And I asked them about some of the EOS stuff. What is your meeting cadence like? What are you doing, as far as quarterly planning? And I asked a lot of the EOS principles without using those terms. None of them are doing it. And I was floored that these guys are high level, high paid, working for large firms, and they don't have an operating system. And they were like, it's hard to nail down a person for a meeting. And I'm just like, how are you functioning? Yeah. So EOS, I think, is the easiest tool to implement. And I tell all the students, it's on my book list. And I tell whether I'm teaching at the school or not, I'm like, read the books, understand the fundamentals, because when you go into a company, because most don't have this, if you implement a fraction of any of that, you are going to be a hero.
I'm always surprised. To me, I went to UT to get my undergraduate degree. Why I wasn't taught the fundamentals of running a business. I thought that's what we were doing, but I think that's something that EOS does really well. So, and I tell people they don't have to hire someone like me. They can just simply, there's so many free resources, just, learn and grow. And what's your third?
The third thing is the fractional resources. And so I realized we weren't even eating our own dog food. We're a fractional administrative staffing company, but we didn't have a fractional team. And so when I needed an executive team, I got to the point where I really needed financial advice. I needed the CFO, this tech, I needed CTO, COO, you name it, I needed it. And so what I started doing is looking for people who were experts, because I didn't want to just hire a warm body. And one of the biggest mistakes I see people make is they say, I'm going to hire this warm body at 40 hours a week, and then I'm going to put 6 hats on them because they're a hot body and I can give them this and I can give them that. Well, what if we hired someone 20 hours a week in the legal aspect, let's say a paralegal, They're amazing at being a paralegal. Are they also going to be great at client services and being chatty and fun and warm and bubbly when they're really data-oriented people who read through all the contracts? We're talking about different people, and we're not going to get the great results. And so I wanted to hire a fractional team where I knew I would get exceptional results. I mean, top of the line talent. And so we did the whole fractional team. And my share on that is it's something like 60% cheaper than if I hired them all individually, which saves us $650,000 a year by having a fractional team. So that's number 3, is make sure that we're not putting someone in 6 hats. And I know you know this, so EOS has the accountability chart, and this is, Elizabeth, this was a shocker for me. When we did our first accountability chart, we put in all of the roles within the organization, and then it was time to add the names. And what was staring back at me was Emily, 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 and Caitlin, 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 Caitlin.
Yeah.
We were fulfilling about 12 roles between the two of us. And when you see that in black and white, it's like, holy moly.
You know, that's I've definitely experienced that. So thanks for sharing. And I'm also curious about, so as a founder myself, there's this drive, like, I want to hire this full-time staff, but the challenge is what I can pay that staff doesn't give me the skill sets. So there's always this, do I hire the full-time person? But I don't, you know, and I think about that, like, maybe I can afford a controller, but I can't afford a full-time CFO. So how do you help somebody navigate when should you really hire a full-time versus when should you hire that fractional?
Well, that's a great question. So what I look at least for my business, is really when are they getting at capacity, and I'm starting to increase their hours more and more. So I've hired 4 executive assistants, and I actually just started a new one within the last 2 weeks, and I told him, I got to break it to you. My assistants don't last long. And I said, but there's good news in that. The reason for that is I've gotten them so busy. The business has grown so much with every single one of them that I found them a permanent position full-time within doing something that they love. So 2 of my executive assistants were whizzes. They really took to marketing. They learned, they grew, they excelled, they had full-time positions. And so, you know, when you start to max out the hours and you can find a position that justifies it, then it's time. Yeah.
Wow. How powerful to know that you're taking people in, letting them do what they love, but then giving them the opportunity to grow, and then seeing that as a positive that they've gone to a new job that may grow their skill sets over time.
Yeah, it's great. I love the 10X is easier than 2X book.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good one. And there's a story in there about the realtor who was terrified to hire her first assistant. How am I going to pay them $8 an hour at 20 hours a week? I was in the same boat. I was terrified. Will I have enough work for 15 hours a week? And oh my gosh, am I going to be able to pay them? Well, it is so true that the business grew so much that I was like, forget your 15 hours. I'm just going to make you full-time. I'm hiring you on permanently. Here's a full-time job. And every single assistant I've done that with, the company keeps growing and growing and growing. So I always tell everyone, yes, it's scary. And I promise you that you are going to grow and you're going to find yourself busy again. The more you offload, the busier you are, it seems like.
Well, and just that concept of we only have so many hours in our days, and there are so many things that you excel in the big picture, and just every hour that you could give back to yourself by leveraging people that are better fit for that even. But that takes a lot of awareness.
Yeah. And I would say I spend about half of my time doing things that are the volunteer things, like the coaching and the teaching, about 50% of my time. And then 50% is spent in the business. And so, and then of course in there, you know, maybe it's 40 and 20 with my kids during my work hours. But having the assistants was what freed up my time to be able to do that. So I still have a very full schedule, but it's focused in areas of where I want to be and the things that I want to be doing with my life.
So when you look out into the future of Back Office Betty, what do you see? What's your plans going forward?
Well, I ask myself all the time, what else can we do to make the life of small law firms owners better? And we work with entrepreneurial lawyers, and so obviously the entrepreneur space is kind of my heart and soul. And so I look at them as in the trenches with me. Like, we're all trying to learn, we're all trying to support each other, and what other services can we expand into in order to help better support them. And some of it even might be like peer-to-peer learning and coaching opportunities, education opportunities, understanding EOS, understanding profit first, understanding the different ways to structure a business so that their communities thrive and their families thrive. And it's my little butterfly effect of like spreading good, is if we can help someone run a business better, their family does better, their children do better, the community does better, and it's a little butterfly effect.
That's beautiful. Is there anything else you want to share about your experiences throughout? You've got an amazing career, but any other lessons learned that you'd like to share, or any challenges you overcame?
No, something I've been thinking about today is a friend of mine, an entrepreneur friend, commented on my bright lipstick. And she said, "You always look so happy." And I tell her, the days I wear my brightest lipstick, I feel the darkest inside. And so when I teach classes, I say, you've got to get your mental health right, because especially if you're going to be a leader, like, you wouldn't know it, but I've been going through a very, very painful breakup. But you have to have your mental health right, because I've got to get up and I've got to put on my pink lipstick and I have to smile and get through the day and be vulnerable and not fall apart and be there for my children. And so, and business is such a challenge on top of life. Like, life stuff is already hard enough. So if we don't focus on prioritizing our mental health, that's the number one thing that I really preach in business, is like, we've got to fill our own cup, make sure we are resilient, make sure that we can survive life's hardships, because they're going to happen and it's going to be even harder in business.
So what do you do to refill your cup?
A lot of yoga and meditation.
Excellent.
Yeah, meditation, journaling. A really cool tip I learned is, instead of affirmations, when you stand in front of the mirror and feel ridiculous, saying, "I love you so much." An affirmation is where you ask a question. So you might say to yourself, "Elizabeth, why are you so successful?" And when you do that, I want you all to do it, because when you do it, your brain's going to start coming up with reasons why. And I feel like that is so much more magnetically attracting of the feelings inside of you that you need in order to be uplifting. So I might ask, Emily, why is it that you were given this opportunity of a painful experience? And my brain starts telling me it's because you needed to grow in these areas. You needed to become more selfish and stop overgiving to people. You need to know who to pour your energy into. And so my brain starts coming up with this, and often I will use that as a journal prompt when I'm facing a struggle, is, what opportunity is this painful experience teaching me? Or if I just need to pick me up, why are you so damn great, Emily? Well, you've overcome a lot. And it's just, the brain starts going. And so I love the affirmation process.
That is beautiful. And I challenge everybody, let's give that a go. That's very positive. So I like to end my interviews by asking guests 2 questions. The first is, what authentically makes for a successful entrepreneur?
Oh man, self-awareness. It
Beautiful.
all goes back, but and back to the psychometrics, where that's really cool, is knowing where our weak areas are. We can build a team around us so that as that eagle, we can fly. We can't do that when we're trying to do things outside of who we naturally are. So we really need to know ourselves.
That's beautiful. And then how do you define success as an entrepreneur?
Well, obviously, if I can pay my bills. I mean, that's going to be first and foremost.
That would be important,
Because
yes.
there were years that I went without a paycheck. And so at that time, I would have been like, money. But ultimately, success is what brings you happiness and joy in your life. And if I get to spend time hanging out with people that I value and I trust and I respect throughout most of my life, for me, my relationships are good, and that creates happiness for me. And so that is what makes me successful, I think, would be cultivating those good relationships.
And how do you define success?
People People love happiness. It's a contentment that you find within yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Sorry, I wanted to just kind of get that second point out. Well, Emily, I just can't tell you, this is the first time we've met, and I'm walking away just in awe, and I admire you so much. So continued success. Thank you so much for the give back, because that's incredibly important. So again, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure.